Thanks for tuning in to the Old Dirty Basement. On this week's episode, we're covering hijacking a FedEx Flight 705.
Yeah, that Auburn Callaway. That guy was something special.
Yeah, it was cool to hear about this story. Takes me back. I had some experience at FedEx growing up, working there. And it's a story kind of hit home, and I found it interesting, and it was fun. We had a special guest on this one, too.
Two special guests, actually. We're going to kick the show off with a call from Matt's mom, a little funny story about Matt and his flight with FedEx. And then we had a guest, Neil, on that you'll hear near the end, who was actually at the hub in Memphis working for FedEx when all this went down. First-hand account of being there. It was really cool. We really enjoyed it, and we hope you do.
There's a lesson to be learned from this. Don't mess with the owner of FedEx.
That's right.
5.1.
You are right on that. So we hope you enjoyed this one. Don't forget to leave that 5-star rating. Spotify, Apple, Google, wherever you're at. Apple, you can leave a written review. Really help us out. Sit back, relax, and enjoy FedEx Flight 705. So before we get into this FedEx Flight 705, we're going to have a little call with Matt's mom.
How's it going, Mom?
Hello.
Hello. There you are. All right.
So we're here with Matt and Zap.
And yeah, Matt's crunching.
Sorry, Dave brought down pretzels, and they're delicious, Mom.
Doesn't your mother feed you, Matt?
Yeah.
No. Actually, no, I made lasagna the other day. It was pretty good. How about, Mom?
He's a good cook.
That's a very good cook.
Mm-hmm.
Good and terrible.
So Matt tells us you have a story about him flying.
Yeah, we were talking to a guy, Neil, Mom, and he worked at FedEx, and he was there the time that I don't know if you ever heard of it. Flight FedEx 705 was hijacked in what year was that? 1994, in April of '94. But we're just doing some stuff on FedEx, and I was saying that I did work for FedEx for a while, but I did have a jump seat experience of my own, and I think I was coming to visit you, I think for a wedding or something like that, right? Something like that. But if you want to go ahead and tell that story, go right ahead.
Oh, yes. It wasn't a wedding. I think you were just coming out just to visit your mom. And
I don't think that
I went and picked you up. Went and picked you up, and you were like white as a ghost. And I said, "Oh my gosh, Matthew, what happened?" And he said, "I'll never fly again. I'll never fly again." To say, I just had a terrible experience, and you proceeded to tell me about what happened. I guess from Harrisburg International, or wherever the hangar is at FedEx.
That's at Harrisburg.
You flew out with the crew people to the hub in Memphis, Tennessee.
Yeah, I took
and then from there,
I took a 727, Mom. Hold on. I took a 727 from Harrisburg to Memphis. From Memphis to Albuquerque, I took a DC-10, and that was the plane that was in the story that we just told.
Okay, and you said that there was only 3 people on that flight. It was
No, there was 4. There was 3 in the cabin, and then
3 in the cabin, and then yourself.
Yeah,
so 4 total people, and you were back in the back with all the cargo. And
that's correct. That's where you
said
sat.
All of a sudden,
DC-10.
I think you said you were falling asleep, or all of a sudden you heard all these horrible noises. And I think you were kind of dozing off.
I was dozing off, and then I seen red lights going off in the cabin, and it was going. It was making a weird sort of squealing beep, like a something like that. I don't quite recall, but there's a lot of red blinking. And have you ever known any red lights to be good?
No,
typically no.
Yes.
So anyway, you did say that I guess an engine had failed, and you heard all kinds of cursing and cussing up in the front, and
No, I wasn't exactly what something failed. I'm pretty sure it was an engine is what they said later, or something on the left side. There was a failure of something, but go ahead.
Well, at the time you had said it was an engine failure, and I think you had descended. I don't know how many feet, but there was a lot of commotion going on. And
yeah, I remember trying to take a nap, and I don't think I was buckled, so I was laying down to nap. And I felt myself like rise and slam down. I actually came from the little bench area and landed flat on my face on the floor of the plane there at the loading area. And then I knew, started hearing like the screaming, or not screaming, but yelling and stuff from, it was chaotic, somewhat chaotic for what seemed to be like forever, but it was probably within 30 seconds to a minute of like the carrying on and whatever.
And then after that experience, you had to get back home. So I encouraged you needed to fly back because you needed to get back to work. But you couldn't do it without going to the doctor and getting some kind of medication and a bottle of whatever good stuff that you could get.
And you're acting like I drink a whole bottle before I would fly. I don't think.
It really was a bad experience for him. And
so he looked scared.
Oh yeah, you said what happened when you saw me when I got off the you got off the little tarmac area I was walking to see you.
Well, you just looked white as a ghost, and you were just scared to death, and that's all you said to me was, "I'll never fly again."
And at this point, he's in New Mexico. So if you would have had to drive back, that'd be a long drive.
Or a bus.
Oh, it's a long drive. He would have taken the bus, but he had to get back to work.
Get on the bus.
But anyway, for the longest time, he would not fly.
Yeah, I mean, that would be traumatic.
Traumatic.
And I think the next flight that he was going to take, it was for a wedding in Las Vegas. And I guess, like I said, he went to the doctor and
loaded up.
Yeah.
He drank enough stuff with the medication, and
he got his happy pills.
Yeah.
Yeah, but what happened on that flight? That flight was actually the first flight wasn't able to take off from Vegas to home.
Oh, well, then you had horrible experience.
Yeah, they grounded it.
I don't know if you want to hear about that.
And the second flight.
No, and then the second flight going home, it was struck by lightning.
What?
So they had to turn it around.
Jesus. Is that legal?
Yes.
Because I guess something happened. This was a passenger flight.
Yes, but they did have fun in Chicago.
It happens quite often.
They got to spend the night, and they got to eat the good food there.
Yes,
so
we were grounded in Chicago.
Nothing was going right the second flight that he took. So, but
I think that was American Airlines. Anybody flies American, they did put us up in a hotel for the evening. It was paid for. We went out and got some good Chicago style pizza.
That's cool.
Spent some time in Chicago.
Didn't you say that they did something? So the next morning when you go to get your flight to Harrisburg from Chicago, something else went wrong. But
I don't think so on that day.
To say though, he's a flyer now. He's a flyer.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
And I heard you always bring up Castaway, the movie, when you talk about Matt saying that they based it off him. Is that what I heard? When you tell people the story about the FedEx flight, the Castaway.
Yeah. No, I say a lot of time you'll meet people and say, my son worked for FedEx, and you're like, did you ever see the movie Castaway? So they're waiting for like this big story. They'd be like, "What, was that true?" Like, yeah, that was a true story. It was actually about me.
But anyway, he survived it all, and he's here, and
there he is.
All is well.
God's little children.
They just come up with teleporting. You don't have to worry about any of that.
Yeah,
somebody work on that. But yeah, we appreciate you taking the time to do the call with us. I guess that's it, huh? You got anything else, Matt?
No, thanks, Mom. Thanks for
No,
for
I'm
listening.
good. I'm enlightened.
Enlightened, yeah. We learned something.
Okay.
Learned something about Matt. Keep the pill bottles away from him.
Yes.
Yep.
For sure, I know.
All right.
Okay. Well, you guys enjoy.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
Good night, dear.
Good night.
Good night.
Bye-bye.
Okay. Bye.
Bye-bye.
This is the Old Dirty Basement, home to debauchery, madness, murder, and mayhem. A terror-filled train ride deep into the depths of the devil's den.
With a little bit of humor.
History.
And copious consciousness.
I'm your announcer, Shallow Throat. Your hosts are Dave, Matt, and Zap. I love you, Matthew McConaughey. All right, all right, all right.
Hey, this is Dave.
Matt.
And Zap.
And welcome to the Old Dirty Basement,
where every week we cover a true crime,
murder,
or compelling story.
So sit back,
relax,
and comprehend.
Hello, 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 and welcome back to the Old Dirty Basement. I am Matt. With me always is Dave.
What's up, guys?
And Zap.
Hey, man.
What's going on, fellas?
Not much, not much.
You guys enjoying this dreary May weather?
Of course.
Yeah.
And
Not the boxer.
Triple hellos to everyone as well.
Yes.
When you say Mayweather, I was thinking of Floyd.
Yeah.
Nice.
But yeah, man, I'm excited for this one. This is one that I don't think a lot of people know about. This hijacking, pretty wild.
Yeah, I mean, this is something you certainly don't see or hear of every day.
I think it happened in a time of our lives where like hijackings weren't very important.
Right.
We weren't really watching the news.
Yeah.
in April of '94.
Was this overshadowed by OJ?
No,
It
that
would've
was
been
until
This
right
was
before
right before
June.
OJ. Yeah. This is right before. All right.
yeah, but I don't know. I think we weren't watching, CNN.
No, definitely busy around this time.
Yeah.
When this went down, we were a month and change away from
That's what
graduating
I'm saying.
high school. man.
There's other
Mhm.
things going on. At
Hell
the time.
yeah.
Yeah. So this is the FedEx Flight 705 hijacking. So like I said, kind of an unknown story, but I think when we get into this, people are going to be shocked.
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
And all.
Shock and awe. Yeah.
Indeed.
And we even have the end of this one. I want you guys to hang around for sure. We have a special interview with somebody that was actually at the hub when all this went down and saw what transpired. Basically, I don't want to give everything away here, but
First hand observation.
yeah. So that'd be cool to talk to somebody with inside information on that. Matt, you used to work there, right?
Yeah, I did. I actually worked at FedEx a long time ago. There was like a hub, and I actually worked at the airport.
Yeah.
And there was another station that I worked at when I delivered for a little bit.
This
Right.
is the airport in
Middletown.
South Central Pennsylvania.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. They also have the National Guard unit that's right there, and UPS is right next door.
Indeed.
Yeah, I have connections in the business of overnight logistics as well, so I'm kind of knowledgeable on this. But Matt, I remember you telling me you had to drive. It's a thing called a tug, right?
Yes, a tugger.
And a tug is something you would use to transport the freight out to the airplane.
Before you would load the underground. Yes.
Right. And you said you were going to get a tattoo at one point, maybe driving that tug.
Tug life, yes.
Tug life across
I
the
was going to
stomach.
get tug life
Nice.
across my
Yeah.
stomach.
I thought that'd be a cool tattoo to get,
Yeah.
like the great Tupac had thug life. Matt was going to get tug life.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a hard job, but
Right.
somebody had to do it.
Now, is it true that somebody had told me that with those tugs or any kind of, if you hit an airplane, you're done? Basically, you're
Yeah, pretty much, because people would look at an airplane, you would think that they're like pretty solid, but actually the fabric that's wrapped around it, it's like paper thin. So anything that would like even bump at you, like cause a hole and severe damage at a place like FedEx, you're talking like could be 4 to 10 hours to repair. So the flight's basically
done.
Done.
And the
It's
FAA has
sitting.
to come in, and it's like a whole ordeal. That's what I was told. So
and
yeah.
if you do it, it's pretty much your fault. They'd probably make you sign some papers and walk you out that night.
That'd be done. Yeah.
So I was probably responsible for most of the packages you got
Yeah.
in the
at
early
some- at some
90s.
point.
Well, you're a responsible guy.
95. Yeah, thank you. Thank
You're
you.
probably handling Zap's tax documents.
Yes,
Could
one
very
point.
well have
Could
been.
they were there lickety split.
So Zap, you got all the facts on this, I guess. We ready to go through it?
I think I do, but man, from the sounds of it, you guys know all there is to know about the logistics business.
Yeah. A little
Actually,
bit.
yeah.
Just a little bit.
Well, this one's about not necessarily the logistics business, but instead a crazy ass disgruntled employee.
Mm.
Well, I don't know. Was he disgruntled? I guess we'll learn more about this guy.
I think we will.
Yeah.
So
We always foreshadow like that. I think it's something we'll have like a one-liner. We're like, yeah, I think we
Yeah.
will.
Yeah,
We may.
I think we may.
find out.
Let's find out. Let's get into it.
tune in. So for FedEx Flight 705, we're going to begin our story with Auburn R. Calloway. So Auburn R. Calloway worked as a flight engineer for FedEx. Over the course of weeks in March of 1994, FedEx had uncovered a series of irregularities and outright falsifications in both his original employment application and in hundreds of hours of flight records since.
Mm.
Yeah, this guy basically, I think he was a pilot, I believe, and I think he went to. Well, I guess we'll talk about this later, but I think he fudged a lot of the numbers. I guess you would say he wasn't really honest about
Indeed.
a lot of things.
So is this, so I certainly don't run payroll for FedEx.
Right.
Is this to basically, I don't know, beef up the, I would think of, as a CPA, we call it billable hours.
Mhm.
So is this for him to basically beef up his time card or something like that?
No, what he did, I think, was he was in the military service, and he logged flight hours that would accredit him, like to be able to move
say,
along
yeah.
and do, you know what I mean, to move up the ladder, basically in the corporate world, or not corporate world, but in like a commercial airline or like this. Basically, logging flight hours kind of gives you
More cred,
more credit, and basically you can like take on
street cred,
right,
but in the sky.
yeah, like in the sky, right?
Yeah, and I think to get a job at FedEx as a pilot was very competitive. I think Fred Smith, who started the company, was a Navy pilot, And if you go there, most of the pilots that you see or talk to, they are all Navy.
Yeah.
So
actually, you know what? He was Navy too.
Yes,
I believe.
Yes,
Yeah.
Fred Smith was Navy. And
no, I'm saying this Callaway guy
yes,
was.
Yes, he was. And I think two of the people in the flight were, or maybe all three, I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
But I just remember for when I did hazardous and I was loading planes, all the guys were all Navy guys.
Yeah.
That's what they would talk about. Hey, you in the service? And nah, man.
No.
Navy. But I know it was very, very hard to get a job as because they made they make buku money.
It's good money.
Sure.
Man.
And and Fred Smith looks out for the Navy. So
Right.
Interesting.
mm-hmm.
Look what I'm learning tonight.
Yeah.
So this guy, Callaway, was ordered to appear at a disciplinary hearing scheduled for April 8th, 1994 in Memphis, Tennessee, the location of both FedEx's corporate headquarters and, conveniently, Callaway's residence. The situation looked grim for Callaway. He knew all too well that the outcome of this hearing would likely result in the termination of his employ with FedEx and the loss of his FAA flight certification.
See, that's when you lie on stuff like that. You just get bound up.
Right.
Sure.
Like, yeah, if you were just,
You're
honest
just
from
there-
the get-go,
Yeah.
a lot of this wouldn't have happened, basically.
Yep.
So, do you know basically what the hearing was about outside of the hours and all that? I mean, that was like the main thing. But do you guys know what pushed them to even start looking at that stuff?
So what brought this all to light?
Right.
Like how was it? Yeah. So like, was it a whistleblower? Did he just get too greedy? But no, I have no idea. What did he do?
He applied for a job?
No. So the guy we'll interview here at the end. He'll shed a little more light on this to kind of explain it to our listeners. But there's a thing called that they have like an inner corporate, or what am I trying to say? Like TV network, basically, where it's only broadcast to employees. And Fred Smith was giving a presentation on this network to all the employees about they were trying to acquire like overseas. They were trying to expand their reach
And they succeeded.
and purchase these other airlines, basically, to kind of bring them in with FedEx and become more international. Like, we're going to fly to these countries. And he was doing a presentation, and there was a phone number at the bottom that employees could call. Well, this guy basically picked up a phone, used a fake employee number, and called and got on live and was basically calling out Fred Smith on the air and making a fool of him, trying to, like, asking him these questions and like, oh, well, this will never work. You can't do blah, 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 blah. Well, we're obviously do that to the CEO. He's going to get pissed.
Sure.
And be like, who is this guy? They were all unionized. These pilots were kind of like separate, I guess, from FedEx. They had their own unions and stuff. And Fred Smith basically shut them down. Was like, call your union rep. That's, we're done here, whatever, kind of ended it. But behind the scenes, they were kind of like, let's find out who this guy was, like, the disrespect to the CEO like this. And I guess a couple of people were like, I recognize that voice. That was the
This
Callaway guy posing as somebody else.
Was he like Cab Calloway? He's like,
He might have sounded like that.
The scat man.
So the managers were like, let's start looking at this guy. We want to find something on, like, basically, we're going to start looking around, see what we can find on this guy. What's up with this guy? And that's when they found out he falsified some of his documents.
This is what you get for pissing off the CEO.
Right.
well, this is like in real life, like they say everybody has a boss. Like it didn't get higher than Fred Smith
Right.
for FedEx. Like,
he's the
right.
one that's-
it was him.
He started it.
Yeah,
That's awesome.
Yeah.
which would be really cool.
Right.
Wow.
I wonder what his net is.
I don't think he's still with us.
Fred
He's
Smith?
he's around, but he's not. I don't think
He
he's
got away from-
active, or I
okay.
think his son.
This
took
dude's
over.
still alive.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Fred. No, are you talking about Fred Smith? Or,
Yeah.
Yeah. He's still around, but
Okay.
he's not I don't think he's acting CEO.
Okay.
I mean, I'm
You
not
don't,
sure.
you don't want
Well,
that stress.
we can ask our guest at the end.
I got to look into Fred Smith. I wonder if there's like his picture on the wall when you walk into the hubs. Like, if you walk into any
Like the president.
yeah, so if you walk into any army base, right, you're or anything in the service, from left to right, you're going to see pictures of the president, the vice president, the base commander, the whatever commander, and then you're like your whomever else. And basically, when you walk in, your CEO is going to tell you, gentlemen, familiarize yourself with these people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm sure it is. That guy is FedEx. Like, he started the whole thing.
Yeah,
There's
so-
like a shrine.
So what are this called? A big statue
Yeah.
out front.
Yeah.
Yeah, I did look up Frederick W. Smith's network, and it is 5.1.
Mill?
No,
Or Bill?
no.
Did you say net worth or network?
Net worth.
Oh, okay.
His doors definitely go like
His
that.
doors go like this, not like this.
That's what I was waiting to hear.
Shit, his houses go like that, like that.
Yeah.
Houses are in the sky.
Here's another fun fact. His son is head coach of the Atlanta Falcons. How about that?
How about that?
Yeah.
That is
Cash me
good.
outside. How about that?
Cool.
Did you know that?
No.
One of his sons, yeah.
Dang.
Oh, he's an assistant.
Arthur Smith. He's the head coach of the Atlanta
Arthur Smith
Falcons.
is?
Yeah.
Fucking Falky.
Yeah.
Fucking Falcon.
That's right.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Anyways, back to Auburn Callaway. In a hopeless panic, Callaway devised a plan. Shortly before the date of his hearing, Callaway began rearranging his financial affairs. He'd maintained an accidental death and dismemberment policy through FedEx, a policy worth $2.5 million in the event of his untimely death.
Only in the event of his untimely death.
That's
right?
how insurance
Yes.
policies work.
Okay.
You gotta die.
Yeah, I know that, but it got to be like a horrible accident or
An accidental death or dismemberment.
Dismember, like lose like an
This would
arm.
have to be in the line while working.
while working.
Yeah.
There you go.
Think of
That's what I was
workers'
thinking.
comp, but this is a big one.
Yeah,
Mhm.
you're dead,
Yeah.
or you lose like all your
Yeah.
arms and
You
shit.
could have got that for your finger. Yeah.
I know, right? I should have.
Matt messed
Should've.
his finger up pretty bad.
It's growing back though.
Yeah.
It's still broken,
Little by little.
Big. Yeah,
Soak it in cider, they say.
I just got my
I got it.
I got my what is that? My toes popped. I'm fine.
Yeah.
Oh,
Blackstrap
it's a
molasses.
blackstrap molasses. Good for you, man.
Yeah.
So this dude, in addition to the $2.5 million policy, he also maintained a term life insurance policy. Days before his hearing, he paid a visit to the FedEx Employee Benefits Office to ensure that the insurance beneficiaries were in order. And he also sent nearly $40,000 worth of securities and nearly $14,000 worth of cashier's checks to his former wife.
Wow. So
Yes,
he's
this guy,
prepping
yeah.
for something.
But I think he was going through some marital difficulties.
Yeah,
was
his. So yeah, this was his former wife. This is his ex-wife.
Mhm.
Exy, and I guess he had a couple kids.
Yeah,
Right.
He was living with another FedEx employee at the time. They
Yes.
had an apartment.
So that
Was
apartment,
it a
they,
girl or a zoo?
no, it was I think
another
it was
roommate?
other dudes.
A
Roommate?
zoo.
Okay.
So that apartment they were living in, it was like I think like a rough area. And what they would do is these pilots would be in and out of Memphis because it's a major hub. So they kind of did like I don't want to say like a sublease, basically. Like you're here a couple times a month,
Sure.
you someplace to stay,
Like a halfway house.
right? But it was this bad neighborhood, and they had this rule. He was like, "Hey, all I ask is when you leave the place, put all the valuables in the dryer, because if somebody breaks in, it'll be safe. So take like the radio and whatever that can fit in the dryer and hide it." And he actually took a mannequin and would put it in the window, like Home Alone style.
Yeah, that's the first thing I think of.
Dance.
That's so messed up.
To basically fool the bad guys. If the wet bandits are out there,
Yeah.
basically they're not
Well,
going to come
you
in.
got to figure like outside of the Memphis area, I don't think it's that great. I mean, a lot of crime. I mean, from what I hear or what you see, there's a lot of crime in that area, and you're not going to be going that far from the
Mhm.
main hub there to get a place to stay.
Right.
So that was probably their only option. But
Mhm. Yeah, but I thought that was pretty wild
Mm.
that he had to do that. But I guess, hey, whatever.
Damn.
Protect your valuables. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, this guy's plan was pretty simple. He wanted to provide for his family in exchange for ending his own life, and he wanted to exact revenge on FedEx
revenge.
by
Mhm.
any and all extreme means possible.
Yeah.
It's kind of like a
This is like a
Super-
Marvel plot.
yeah Marvel. This is
It is.
Yeah.
FedEx origin story.
Yeah.
Then came the fateful day, the day before his hearing, April 7th, 1994. FedEx Flight 705 was all set to fly from Memphis, Tennessee to San Jose, California. Callaway boarded Flight 705 nonchalantly, dressed in full flight gear and with carry-on items as he had done dozens of times in the past. He arrived before the rest of the crew. Although he was not a member of the flight crew, he entered the cockpit and began adjusting instruments and controls as if he were. One instrument in particular was the flight's cockpit voice recorder, which he'd switched off by pulling its circuit breaker.
Mm-hmm.
The real crew members arrived later. Pilot David Sanders, co-pilot James Tucker, and flight engineer Andy Peterson. David Sanders had worked for FedEx for 20 years and previously served with the U.S. Navy for 9 years during the Vietnam War.
Now, when you said that, I think they said when Peterson boarded, he walked in and he was like, "Man, this is weird. This is kind of messed up." So he went and plugged it back in,
Yeah.
and then I think he moved away again, and then the guy did it again, and he came back. He's like, "What the hell?"
Yeah.
James Tucker had worked for FedEx for 10 years and had previously worked for People Express Airlines for 3 years. Also previously served with the U.S. Navy for 12 years during the Vietnam War. There's this Navy thing again.
What the hell's People Express? I never even heard of that.
People Express Airlines, whatever, like a local.
Well, I wonder if that was
a
like
small one.
Probably some
logistics
prop
or
planes or something.
Might have been before Virgin.
maybe. You think that's like
I can look it up. I mean,
yeah, maybe. I wonder if that's logistics or like just flying people around.
Yeah.
I'm just curious. I never heard of that People Express, but I'm sure there's a ton of these little airlines that were, basically flying under the radar. No pun intended, but
Under the radar. And then Andy Peterson had worked with FedEx for 5 years. So he was a newbie
right.
as the flight engineer.
So Callaway, I don't know if you guys know this, but he was initially supposed to be on this flight to, where were they going, San Jose?
Mhm.
Yep.
Yeah. He was a flight engineer, but with FAA rules, you run out of hours, you can't fly. He went over about like a minute.
No shit.
Yeah, so he got kicked off that flight. He's like, well, I got to be on this flight. I got this plan I want to do.
Yeah.
And initially, his flight crew was like a female and like an older male that was going to be on. And he's like,
he thought he could
it'll be
take
just
them.
me
Yeah.
with these two. I'll be able to overpower them.
Yeah.
Right, just to kind of foreshadow what's going to happen.
So everything got shifted around on it. Like they changed the cast of characters on him.
Basically, and brought
Yeah,
in
he had no clue, and then he decided to go with it anyway.
Well, he did. He called. There was a number you could call, I guess, to like find out, like, hey, I want a jump seat, or I want to fly on this, flight, and who's going to be on it, And they were like, that's weird, but he got their names. He didn't know the names, but he looked it up and kind of see. He's like, oh, whatever. I'll just go with it. And
Yeah, but all he had to do was wait for another day when he was on a crew, which I didn't understand that whole part. Like he was that desperate to like do it.
well, his hearing.
This was the day before his hearing. So
Yeah.
anything after his
he would
hearing,
have been grounded. I got it. So he had to go
he
through
would
with
have
it.
been out of a fucking job.
right.
Yeah.
So that thing with the hours you were talking about, is that like truck drivers?
Exactly.
Oh yeah, they have
Just
to
think of it like DOT. It's just FAA.
Okay.
And they I read the book, and the book was really good on this. And basically, in Memphis, all these flights come in from all over the place. Well, they were circling the airport. They were on time, but because somebody else was backed up, it just backed everything else
so
up.
you had a minute extra.
And by the time they landed and it was a minute over, and he was trying to falsify it. He was like, "Hey, come on now, we'll just put in there." Like, no, we're not doing that, because he knew like if I do this, I'm going to lose my flight tomorrow or the next day or whatever it was. So
What you mentioned earlier about the People Express Airlines, it was a stylized. People Express was a low-cost U.S. airline that operated from 1981 to 1987. It was merged into Continental Airlines. Oh. The airline's headquarters was in the North Terminal of Newark Liberty International Airport, so it was like super small.
So it was like a Frontier. Or
Sure. Yeah.
one of them.
There were them little like prop planes and a couple little jets.
Like
That was
Blue
it.
Star Airlines from Wall Street.
Blue
I
Star.
still got to see that.
You, God damn it, Dave. You need that movie in your life.
Well,
For reals.
you got me on Rear Window, so I got that one knocked out.
Nice.
Yeah, foreshadow.
There you go. So now, while it was not unusual for FedEx employees to hitch rides on regular flights, a practice known as jump seating or deadheading, as we had already said, it certainly was unusual for someone who's not on the flight crew to be settled into the flight engineer station initiating pre-flight procedures.
Yeah,
I don't think anybody caught him in there. Like I think he just kind of walked in and walked out.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, not walked in, walked out. Actually, so again, he's sitting. His job was a flight engineer, so he's sitting in the flight engineer's seat where the flight engineer would otherwise sit. He's sitting there when the rest of the crew arrives, and they discover him sitting at the controls doing whatever. They didn't say shit, but as soon as they walked in, he just got out of the seat and gave his seat to Andy Peterson, the flight engineer, and then just went and sat in the jump seat.
When I was at FedEx, I jump seated several times. I jump seated a DC-10 and a 727. And at the DC-10, which is the one that they had here, you have the cockpit, which has the two pilots. The flight engineer is behind them on the right.
right.
And then the jump seaters will sit in the back. So right up against the back of the cockpit. So you weren't actually in the cockpit. You were outside. But this was before 9/11 and all that other stuff.
Yeah.
right.
So basically during a flight,
There's like seating for 4 up there for a plane like this.
Yes.
There's the 2 guys in the front. There's the guy on the side, and then there's the jump seat that can foldy downy.
No, but that's on the 727. There was no jump seat foldy downy on the DC-10.
Oh.
You only sat outside of the cockpit.
Oh.
Oh wow. Okay.
So, like, here's the cockpit from here on out. You would sit here, and they had seats that went across.
Like in a back room,
Like
like not in the same room, like in another.
yeah,
part of the
you're
plane.
not inside the plane, but they never
Yeah.
closed the.
They left it
didn't-
open.
Yeah, they didn't like close it and lock it and all that other stuff. Like the
Right.
door was kind of like open.
Right.
So yeah, it was. They don't do that anymore. There's
No.
like 4 locks and secret codes and.
Mm-hmm.
So Andy Peterson arrives, and as he performed his pre-flight sequence, because he's the flight engineer,
Mm-hmm.
he noticed the circuit breaker for cockpit voice recorder had been turned off. He turned it back on as per standard operating procedures. And again, in the meantime, Calloway took his seat. But yeah, in the jump seat.
Yeah.
But as you had said, Matt, now I didn't read anything about, like, he found it off. And so, I'm sorry, so then Andy turned it back on. I didn't find anything else that Calloway tried to make his way back to turn it back off again.
Yeah, I think they were
Yeah.
doing stuff.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And he walked in again and pulled it. So the flight engineer, I guess that's called like a groundable
Yes.
offense.
Sure.
So as a groundable offense, that means it can't go anywhere.
Mhm.
So he was like, let's check this out. They ran the whatever they had to run on it. I'm not a pilot. Again, I am not a pilot.
I'm no pilot. Yeah.
I'm no
scientist.
But yeah, it came up good and they said, okay, let's get this puppy going. But he found that
Odd.
very odd. And he noted it. I guess he noted it twice.
Yeah, he just thought it was just like a faulty, he's like, if this pops out again, so it was twice now that it did it. He's
Yeah.
like, if it does it a third time, and he basically was sitting there waiting, and if it would have popped out in that amount of time, but obviously it's not going to because
Right.
the guy's not going to come over.
Right, right.
It was weird wiring.
Yeah,
Yeah. Wow. It's a malfunctioning plane.
basically, yeah.
So, yeah, in the meantime, Calloway took his jump seat, and one of his carry-on items was a guitar case, which he'd stowed outside the cockpit. Unbeknownst to the rest of that crew, the guitar case was filled with 2 claw hammers, 2 sledge mallets, a knife, and a spear gun.
Mm.
Now, the knife and a spear gun were items of last resort. Calloway's plan was to murder the crew members with the hammers, then crash the aircraft into the terminals at the FedEx hub in Memphis, making the doomed flight look like an accident. This would enable his family to collect on the life insurance policies.
Yeah, like a 2-for-1. basically.
Now, why wasn't he caught with the guitar case?
They don't have metal detectors. Yeah.
Yes, I was going to say that. You could pretty much
For
walk on there.
employees, you can do anything, right?
Yeah, because it's basically you go into like a little airport,
Yeah.
and you just go and you show, hey, where are you going?
There was a push for them to start having the pilots scanned as they went through, and the pilots fought it. They were the union. They were like, no,
Yeah.
we don't want that. We already deal with enough with physicals and everything else. Like, it's just another thing for us to go through. We just want to get here and go.
Yeah,
and
we're
they
just here to
fought-
work, man.
Right.
Yeah, there was no. They're not suspecting a pilot to be bringing
Well,
claw hammers and
you
spear
wouldn't
guns.
think, but the
It
guys,
happens,
the
yeah.
gu-
People lose their shit.
the guy's airline, the bag that he normally used was out being repaired or something weird like that, and that's why he took the
Guitar case.
this is the next thing that he could find.
Well, I think one of the pilots was even like, "Hey, you play me?" He's like, "Yeah, all
Yeah,
the
right.
time."
I play the Death March.
That's a clangy guitar you got in there. Making noise.
Yeah, right.
Wait, is that a broken string?
Yeah.
Well, the flight commences. Less than 30 minutes after takeoff, as the plane was passing 19,000 feet and the flight crew carried on a casual conversation, Calloway went back to get his weapons. He re-entered the cockpit and began his attack, starting with Peterson, the flight engineer, and Tucker, the co-pilot. His targets were their heads, and he assuredly hit those targets and fractured their skulls. The blow to Peterson's head severed his temporal artery. The blow to Tucker's head sent shards of bone into his brain. Now, though he was still conscious, the blow initially rendered him unable to move or react. Like, you think about that, like you just get hit with a hammer and you're just so stunned, like you can't move.
Yeah, it's gotta like definitely stun you for a few minutes till you gather, what the hell's going on. I couldn't imagine.
Look, that's a blow to the fucking grape, man. That's
Right.
When
right
it
to the
fractures
head.
your skull.
Yeah, that's your your central processing unit up there, man. I mean, you hit that thing hard, it's gonna freeze. It's got to hit the reset button for a second.
Did you guys watch the YouTube thing on
I
this?
did, yeah. The air disaster,
Air
is
di-
that
yeah,
what it's
yeah.
called? Yeah.
But they were saying that the one who had the fractured skull, they said he was stunned, like he lost control of the left side of his body.
At the time,
Yeah, right when it happened.
Okay.
Like, he was there sitting, and he was like, I can't feel. He lost control of the left side of his body. So that's how hard they said that the contact was, and whatever shut down that part of his brain.
That part of his brain.
that shit's real fucked up.
Yeah, he was hurt.
Yeah.
Well, I'm just saying, you're taking 2 hammers to the head.
Yeah, man.
But why wouldn't this guy, if he was serious about it, why wouldn't he just take him out there? See, it's kind of like a movie.
Well, I think he was probably shocked.
I mean, I start, as I went through this, I start to question that too. And let's see how far this goes, man, because there's certainly holes in this to the extent of, if you're gonna do it, I mean, fucking do it.
Yeah.
You saying these the pilots may have?
No, not at all.
No,
I'm saying
I thought
there's
you said
holes
he
in
may
this.
have, like, enhanced the story.
Not
No,
a bit. No. I'm saying there's holes in this guy's motive. Like, he wasn't pot committed to doing this. Like, if you're gonna fucking do it, fucking do it.
I think that I heard an angle on that was that in his head he thought it'd be one blow and they'd be out and done, and the fact that it didn't go that way, it kind of shocked him in a way that he was like, "Oh shit!" Like, I thought I'd hit him once or twice and it'd be over.
But that's like any horror movie that we watch.
Yeah.
Like, oh, we got him down. I hit him one time with the shovel.
Yeah.
We're okay now. Let's hug and everything's okay.
Right. Or Spock grabs you right on your shoulder blade there, and all of a sudden you fall unconscious.
Right.
That doesn't happen.
No, it doesn't happen. But that's what I mean. Like, was this guy, maybe he was just nuts. Like, I know he was nuts, but
he's watched too much television.
Yeah.
I mean, the guys were fully functioning still. I mean, they were just kind of like,
They were
But-
sure as fuck stunned.
Right.
stunned, exactly. But if you're going to go through with it, like, his plan would have been, once you have him stunned like that, once you
Hit him again, goddammit.
yeah, 3 or 4 blows and it's over.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So
Thinking he'd subdued the two enough, Calloway then set his sights on Sanders, the pilot. Calloway swung wildly at Sanders. Some of the blows landed, some were deflected. The plane lurched as Sanders desperately tried to defend himself. Lo and behold, operating on adrenaline and limited capacity, Tucker and Peterson emerged from their stupor, got out of their seats, and began to fight back. Now, these are the two dudes that just got hit with hammers in the head.
Yeah, and listeners, you got to understand, and I'm sure some of you know this, but in a plane, you're like strapped in.
Yeah.
So it's not like you just can jump
Get
up
up,
and get
yeah.
out. It takes a little bit to like undo yourself and get out of the seat. So it's not like these guys were just sitting there
Waiting on fucking
yeah,
first class meal service.
right. They were strapped in and they were trying to get out, but it takes a little bit to get out. But yeah, I think Sanders was the one yelling like, "Get him, get him, get him."
yes. So they were saying at this point the plane was going in a nosedive so severe that while they were trying to get out in this, they were getting thrown to the back while the pilot was trying to keep this under control. And they're saying that the speed of the plane when it was taking this nosedive was something that the DC-10 shouldn't have been able to stand,
handle,
yeah.
to withstand.
but it made it.
Right.
So at this point, surrounded by all 3 members of the flight crew, Calloway continued his attack and continued inflicting injuries as he flailed away with hammer in hand. The crew wouldn't give up and eventually forced Calloway to retreat from the cockpit. That didn't last long. Not but moments later, Calloway returned, now armed with a spear gun. Despite his injuries, Peterson grabbed the gun by the spear, that's between the barb and the barrel, preventing Calloway from firing at anyone, and threw himself on top of Calloway. Tucker pulled the plane into a sudden 15-degree climb, throwing Sanders, Peterson, and Calloway out of the cockpit into the galley. To try to throw Calloway off balance, Tucker then turned the plane into a left roll, almost on its side. It worked. This rolled Sanders, Peterson, and Calloway onto the left side of the galley. Eventually, Tucker rolled the plane almost upside down at 140 degrees, and Peterson, Sanders, and Calloway were pinned to the ceiling of the plane.
Yeah, this is a big ass plane too to be doing that.
Shit, yeah.
They're saying that's all that the Navy training. So the guy he kind of knew like what it could do, what it couldn't do.
That combat training, yeah.
But he said when I was watching the YouTube thing, he was saying that's the only way. He's like, well, I have this. I can try to. He wasn't thinking of the pilots helping, but he was thinking of like just getting the guy off guard. But in the meantime, like he's rolling everybody just in the back.
Yeah.
And they said that like they were getting beat up mostly from that.
It's like a cement truck.
Yeah,
in the back,
yeah.
just
That's not a bad analogy.
Yeah.
That's like right the fuck on, actually.
spinning around and
But it was all cool for the pilot because he was strapped in.
Yeah.
and imagine the blood, like you know what I mean? 'Cause
Oh, just spraying all over the place.
head injuries bleed profusely.
Sure.
Like, you know what I mean? So I'm sure there was a ton of blood, and I couldn't imagine.
Well, they said but towards the end they said that it looked like they were
horror movie,
unaware. They didn't understand how there was blood 360
All the way around.
the fucking place.
That shit's real fucked up, man. Like a snow globe of blood.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's see. Oh, so as Matt had foreshadowed, just then, Tucker put the plane into a steep dive and initiated a series of wild maneuvers. He knew he had to keep the craft's motion unpredictable, or Calloway would simply wait for the roll to end and then resume his attack.
Well, I didn't get that part because he's doing it to the guys in the back that are trying to help. You're making it unpredictable for all of them. I guess he's figuring.
I know, right? It is kind
Right.
of messed up.
His reasoning made no sense to me.
But I guess at the same time, if you're able to fly and like, I don't know if he was at that point thinking about trying to return it to, in his head, like I got to turn around or, head back to Memphis at this point or,
This Calloway character was also, I think he was trained Kung Fu or karate.
Yeah,
He was a martial arts master.
master.
Yes.
He was fighting Chuck
That couldn't
Norris.
knock people out with a ball peen hammer.
Yeah.
Damn. I don't get that, dude.
Like I said, I think that somebody said that. I don't know if it was on one of those like you watched or if I read it in the book that I think he was in shock. Like you talked about like in movie or one of you said about how like it's never like you see in a movie.
Of course.
Where like one punch and they're down or that he was probably expecting to hit him once and it to be over and it probably shocked him. And maybe he was a little thrown off.
I think too,
I
I can't believe I just did that.
Yeah.
One of those things like, oh, now I'm going into like part 2 of my master plan.
Because it wasn't a he had a purpose to it, but it wasn't like a rage killing where you're just stabbing and stabbing or like hitting and stuff. Like he was just doing it to put into motion his plan. I don't know.
So my understanding of his plan was to kill these 3 guys, make it look like they died of blunt force trauma, and then wreck the fucking plane.
Well, I wonder if he was thinking more of immobilizing them, knocking them out, basically making them unconscious, and then the plane's going to kill them.
Yeah.
In other words, if I can knock them unconscious, I don't necessarily have to kill them, but if I can hit them so hard that they're just out of it and gone, that I can take over the plane.
I can 9/11 this plane into the terminal,
and I don't really have to physically kill these guys. Maybe that was his thought. I don't know, but I get where you're coming from totally on that. Like, why wouldn't you just beat the shit out of somebody until it's totally like over?
And then he would have had the opportunity to pull the little thing he was going to pull for the flight recording. That way,
all he had to do was like fly around. I think for
not
like
even
30
that,
minutes.
just pull it. Yeah, just pull it down. He would have probably crashed wherever he was going to crash at.
The one pilot did say, talking about what you guys are talking about in that documentary that's on that you can find on YouTube or whatever, that he remembers being in a daze and Calloway looking at him in his eyes and kind of seeing that he's not all there, and he moved on to the next guy. Basically, all right, he's immobilized. Let me move on to the next guy. So, but yeah, definitely something you think about. Like, what the hell?
For sure. So Tucker then abruptly threw the yoke forward and sent the plane into that vertical dive. He realized then that the throttle controls were pressed forward to their stops, and he couldn't reach them with his limp, paralyzed right hand.
Oh, is it his right? Not his left.
Tucker's right. But so now at this point, his right side's paralyzed, but it could be, you were talking about maybe him, maybe somebody else, that when they first got hit, it's like, fuck, I can't move my left side.
Yeah, he couldn't move his left side.
Yeah.
Okay. Initial hit.
Yeah. The stunner, the stone cold stunner.
Right.
The diving aircraft accelerated past 500 miles per hour, then past the instrument's capacity to register. Flight 705 was now traveling faster than any DC-10 had ever gone and was experiencing velocity stresses that the airframe could not sustain.
Mm-hmm. According to what I have here, maximum speed was 378 miles per hour.
God damn.
So they, like you said, well over 500 miles an hour.
Now that's gravity fucking with them because they're pointing straight the fuck down at this point.
Right. And once you hit a certain, like when they were at, cruising altitude, it was probably like 26,000 feet, whatever it was. When you get below 10,000 feet, FAA speed limit's 250. Now, I don't know what the plane can do, but they were well over that.
I didn't know the FAA had a speed limit.
Yeah, when you reach under under 10,000 feet, it says here 250 is the limit. I don't know how they clock that if they're there, you know what I mean, pulling you over, but they have a speed limit.
While releasing his only usable hand to pull back the throttles to idle, Tucker managed to pull the plane out of the dive as it slowed down. So he reached over basically with his left hand at this point. As the DC-10 began to level out at 5,000 feet, Calloway managed to hit Sanders again with the hammer, nearly knocking him unconscious. Nearly.
Nearly. I can't believe that.
See, that was the thing, too, on the YouTube.
Everything's calming down. You're leveling out.
Yep.
On the YouTube thing, they had the hammer actually to hit Calloway, and they said the one guy, because I guess you really don't know what's going on. But he went to hit him, and they was like,
No power there.
he was like,
Yeah.
And I guess the guy fighting with him, he's like, look, dude, you got to hit him. Like, we have him down. You got to hit him. And he said after when they were talking to him, he's like, I thought I was, but he's like, at the time.
Just have no power.
Well, not even the power, but I think like in your head, you're like, I'm not trying to kill this person. I don't want to, like a normal person would think, I'm not trying to kill this person.
Just want to incapacitate
I'm just trying to like get him and so we can be safe. But he didn't have it enough in his mind that to be a killer, I guess.
No, I believe that. Unless you're in that situation, you don't know how you're going to react.
Know.
You know?
Yeah. Well, Sanders was certainly losing strength, and Peterson was bleeding out from his ruptured temporal artery and starting to go into shock. And, as Matt had just foreshadowed, despite his wounds and weakening strength, Sanders managed to grab the hammer out of Calloway's hand and attacked him with it. Once the plane had leveled out completely, Tucker grabbed a headset and alerted the Memphis Tower about the attack. He then requested a flight path back to Memphis, an ambulance, and armed intervention for when they'd finally land.
I guess that's the safe word or the not so safe word. It's like the code word they use.
What's that?
Armed intervention means like, oh, like shit's hitting the fan.
Right.
We need the fucking police to come under
SWAT
this.
teams and shit.
Yeah.
You got to wonder, like in the guys on the ground, in their head, they don't know what to expect. Like how many guys? Like is this people with guns? Like were there people hiding out in the cargo area? You know what
Libyans.
I mean? Yeah.
That's why you said, what's that word again?
The Libyans.
Yeah, from Back to the Future.
What's the word? Outgoing intervention. What was it?
Yeah, we're gonna have an intervention.
Yeah.
Armed intervention.
The armed intervention. Yeah, that means like it could. They're saying basically it's all those things.
Yeah.
Bring lawyers, guns, and money.
Yes.
Zevon. Warren Zevon. Yeah.
Oh, so P.S. The flight crew eventually restrained and disarmed Calloway. Sanders took control of the plane, and Tucker, despite being paralyzed on the right side of his body, went back to assist Peterson in keeping Calloway restrained. Sanders communicated with air traffic control, preparing for an emergency landing back at the Memphis International Airport.
Now, when they went for that, right, that was, I mean, they were kind of out of the woods, but not really. I don't know if you have it in there about like the...
We'll find out.
Okay.
So the plane was cleared to land on any runway. The initial offer was to land on runway 9, but being fully loaded with fuel and cargo, the plane was approaching too fast and too high to land there. That's something I don't ever think about, really. Like these things are, you gotta, well, it's the 9/11 thing all over again. I mean, these things are fucking flying bombs, man.
So the weight was like almost 500,000 pounds with cargo and everything, and fuel. 100,000 pounds of that is fuel, right? So they're flying to San Jose, California.
Yeah,
all that 100,000 pounds of fuel is going to burn off and whatever. So that's going to lower the weight and change everything when you land. Well, now they're trying to turn around after flying for a half hour or 40 minutes. So a lot of times they'll try to dump it.
Yeah, they have a dump fuel, but I guess what happened, they
just didn't have time and didn't have. They would have never been able to lose enough fuel like to
or not to sit there and circle for 20 minutes dumping fuel or something like that. I think they said
right. So yeah, that's a lot of weight coming in at a high speed.
They got a madman on their hands.
Yeah,
but he's subdued. But they're all jacked up.
When you first said that, I misheard and I thought you said he's some dude, like some other dude.
Some dude.
All right. Let's see. All right. So Sanders then requested a longer runway number 36. Ignoring automated warnings from the ground proximity warning system, Sanders employed a series of sharp turns and maneuvers and landed the jet safely on the runway at 35,000 pounds over its maximum designed landing weight.
Mm-hmm.
So you're talking about the takeoff and the carry and all that stuff. I didn't know that there was shit to consider. Like, I'm no scientist, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know that they have to consider, like, by the time you get there, you need to be this much lighter or, you're going to fuck up the landing. Like, this is all calced.
Right.
Another thing I didn't know until recently, when planes are coming in to land, they're really just drifting. Like, they're off.
Right.
Not off, but I mean, they power down the engine.
There's no propulsion.
Yeah, they're just letting nature and wind kind of just...
So they're going like 100 miles an hour.
Yeah,
so up
just
there,
slowly come in.
When you're going like, 350 to 100, they just kind of...
I think the number they said that normally to land had to be like 195 or 185, and they were coming in well over 200 some miles per hour. So, and plus the extra
coming
weight,
in hot.
Coming in hot.
Like you also said with FedEx with the weights, there's a whole calculation, a whole mathematical way of structuring how you load the weight inside those cargo planes.
Yeah.
So when they were looking, like you said, for a landing with all the weight that they already had inside it, like moved around, like with the jet that heavy, like you said, it's just a bomb ready to go in.
Yeah.
They dropped a bomb on me, baby.
Baby.
By now, Calloway was defeated. Emergency personnel and police gained access to the plane via the escape slide and ladder. The first paramedic inside was swift to find blood and gore everywhere, as well as Sanders and Peterson laying on top of Calloway, and Tucker, well into shock and heavy blood loss, sitting in the co-pilot's chair, shaking. This is the red snow globe thing.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. But a funny story about that is when they had the SWAT teams, right? So when they got there, they put the emergency things down, but they said they had so much like dust because they're made for sliding down. They had like talcum powder,
Talcum powder, yeah.
So they said SWAT team was trying to get up.
They couldn't get up.
Jesus Christ.
So they're out there trying to get up these slides. I saw like the footage, and they just keep sliding down. So the one guy went and got like a ladder from the fire truck or whatever that was there and put it up, and that's how they got inside. But for like 3 or 4 minutes,
They couldn't get up.
you
Yeah.
had these SWAT team guys
I
trying to
just
get.
think of like a Three Stooges episode.
Yeah. There was
or going up like a ladder at like the public pool. You can't do it.
they said there was like bloody footprints on the ceiling. You know what I mean? Because you figure, like you said, they were spinning, and
Yeah.
it was just like shocking.
These planes aren't meant for that kind of fucking flight.
No, not at all.
Not even close. This is a cargo plane, man.
Mm-hmm.
I'm surprised that inside the plane, you put these locks down. I'm surprised the locks didn't give way and just smash everybody.
Yeah,
Because they would have went just flying through the
the
cockpit.
amount of freight in there. Yeah,
You know, so fun fact, I was going to talk about that side topic, but fuck, it's talking about now.
yeah.
So I have seen video after video of what happens when that freight in a plane is not strapped down. I mean, securely put in place. So when if a plane takes off and all of a sudden something shifts, and I mean shifts hard enough, these are just hollow tubes. So as gravity is now pulling on this thing that's now shifted out of place, you're completely fucking up the plane's flight. But I've seen video after video. These planes will take off and something wasn't, again, secured inside the plane. Cargo shifts. Immediately the flight's going up and it just stops and it just falls right back down to the ground.
Really?
That's not cool.
No, dude. What a difference. That stuff has to be stabilized. Absolutely has to be stabilized.
The weight shifting. Yeah,
Yeah,
that
man,
makes sense. I
It's
guess.
crazy.
It's wild.
Calloway was handcuffed and hauled away. All 4 men were then taken to a nearby hospital. In the end, pilot David Sanders suffered multiple lacerations to his head, had a dislocated jaw, and his right ear had been almost completely severed. Co-pilot James Tucker's skull was severely fractured. The right side paralysis would eventually pass, but he still experiences ongoing motor function impairments to his right arm and leg. Additionally, he'd been stabbed in his right arm and permanently blinded in his one eye, as Calloway had tried to gouge it out during the attack. And finally, flight engineer Andy Peterson suffered a skull fracture and a severed temporal artery. None of the men on this ill-fated flight would ever fly commercially again.
So yeah, we're lucky enough to have Neil on the phone. So Neil worked at the hub in Memphis when this all went on. How's it going, Neil?
Doing good.
Good.
That's awesome. This
So-
guy was there. Neil, you were there.
I was there that day. Yes,
That's
I watched
crazy.
the plane land when it came back.
So you were what? You said like about 21 years old then, working at the hub down in Memphis. And you were living in Mississippi at the time, but you were saying it was like a quick drive to get over there to the hub in Memphis?
Correct.
Right. So tell our listeners like the size of this hub. I mean, it's a pretty massive area, correct?
Yes, the hub encompasses, I think, almost 900 acres, and that's just the FedEx part of the facility that's there adjacent to the Memphis International Airport.
Dang.
So how many people does FedEx employ about, do you know, like in the Memphis area right there?
I believe there's about 11,000 people just that work at the hub and about 30,000 people total with the corporate headquarters and that in Memphis.
That is insane.
That is mind-blowing.
So there's some people that say if this guy, this Calloway, would have been able to carry through his plan, and if he would have been able to wreck the plane into the Memphis hub there, would that have been something, in your opinion, now I'm sure we'll never know, that would have basically ended FedEx? because I was just curious because I'm assuming at that time, I mean, that was the majority of the freight that FedEx would handle would have to go through that hub. It would cripple them.
Yeah, I don't know that it would have necessarily ended them, but it would have been very drastic. I'm not exactly sure at that time how many. I know we have other hubs around the country. None of them are anywhere near the size of Memphis, but at that time, I don't think there was much of a footprint at any of those. Indy is like our second largest hub. I'm not sure, 30 years ago what the size of Indy actually was to be able to take on some of that volume while they would rebuild, but it definitely would have been very crippling, and chances are I wouldn't be here today.
Right. Yeah. That's what this guy's plan was, is like those DC-10s, to give people an idea. I mean, that's a huge plane, and you're loading all that. I think it said here it was almost 500,000 pounds if you counted the fuel and the freight and everything else. It was just a massive plane that it would do like a ton of damage, obviously, if he would have been able to carry out the plan. So you had told me that you were actually there watching the plane come back. So can you take us back to that day and kind of tell us what you saw and what you remember? And
yeah, so most of the way the hub works, most of the flights come in within like an hour window, all the volume sorted, and then those flights go back out. So on this particular day, our flight, I believe, had already left for the day, and we were just kind of wrapping up our day. I was working on this, went out on the day sort, so I had just transferred recently to the day sort from the night sort. There's like two separate operations basically. And so we were wrapping up. One of the ramp agents, who is the person that kind of takes care of all the paperwork and making sure the containers are loaded in the airplane and it's balanced for flight, his wife called the ramp shack where the ramp agents worked out of and said, hey, they just said on the news that a FedEx plane has been hijacked and it's coming back to Memphis. And that was at or about the same time that all the fire trucks and rescue vehicles, and you've seen those things at the airport, they're very large fire, basically, were lining up along the runway out in front of us there along the hub. So we went out on, it's called the nose dock, which is it's basically a conveyor belt that transferred the containers out to load the planes that were parked directly adjacent to the buildings. So it was elevated in the air, I don't know, 10 or 12 feet to get to the height of the 727s at the time that we loaded from the nose docks. So we went out there and we're kind of watching, and then eventually the fire trucks left there, the runway that was right in front of the hub, and went across over by the passenger terminal. And in the midst of that transition or whatever, I don't remember exactly the timing, but looking to the west, we could see the plane in a very steep turn. It was basically looked like it was pretty much vertical, turning south to fly south and basically make a big U-turn to fly back in the northern direction to land on the runway that was over by the terminal. Once it got down close to landing, it was so far away, and the way the terminal was and everything else, they couldn't actually see it land, but I did see it as it was making those very sharp turns to make those maneuvers to come back and land.
That's crazy.
Yeah, so you definitely knew something was up.
Was everybody like, did they make their way out onto like
the tarmac?
Yeah, on the tarmac there. Were people making their way out to see what was going on, or was it
no?
Were you told to stay inside, or was it kind of like they were keeping it on the hush?
There was no announcements like from the company or anything. The only reason we knew was because that employee's wife called and told them what was going on. I don't remember very many people, standing out there and watching because I'm not sure most people knew. Obviously, everybody on at least that side of the building, because there's a couple of rows of buildings. Some of those people may not have even heard, but we were on the side that faced that runway. So we heard all the fire trucks and knew something was going on, but it wasn't uncommon at different times for the fire trucks to be out because, one reason or another. There were never any catastrophic events while I was there, but, they go out and do things at different times.
Right.
No, I'm just blown away by this. Like, not only just this story, but wow, like this guy was there like firsthand.
Yeah.
You said like catastrophic events. Like, are there events that happen like not regularly, but like every so often you guys are used to, like, you know, a plane's coming in like hot or
technical difficulties.
Yeah, technical difficulties, or, you know, do you hear stuff about that, or they don't, you don't really see much of that?
I guess most things that I heard about, and there weren't very many of them at all, would be an issue that, you know, there was smoke in the cockpit or something or whatever. For some reason, some package was, you know, smoking or this or that. I was never, you know, involved in any where there were actual fires and stuff, but I know there have been fires, and there's different fire suppression systems, particularly for like the
has cans,
that sort of stuff. But
yeah, that's what I did when I worked there at the airport. I loaded the planes, but I was like the has guy, so I was like the last one to load, made sure like the hazardous was separated and all that fun stuff.
And that's wild. So Neil, I'm curious, have this having happened, you know, however long ago, like 30 years ago, do you know whether there have since been safeguards put in place to you know, possibly, you know, stop this from happening again? Or not necessarily stop it, but at least hinder someone's ability to be able to do what this crazy guy did?
So I used to jump seat quite a bit as well, because about a month or so after this incident, I actually transferred out of Memphis. So I would jump seat back home because all my family is there quite a bit. And that whole jump seat process, all of the employees, with the exceptions of the pilot, had to have their bags checked. And even coming in and out of the hub for work, anything you were carrying in, you went through metal detectors and scanners and that type of stuff. But there was an additional, you had to get, it was like a green sticker they had to put on your bag to approve that bag when you were jump seating. But the pilots, they didn't have to do that. They just walked around. There was a separate set of scanners in the jump seat area. And the pilots just walked around. Their bags were never screened prior to this event. But after that, I believe, had to get their bags scanned as well. They were no longer exempt from getting their bags checked.
And I remember after 9/11, I think they did away with it completely, or is it back again now? Are you still able to jump seat, or is that done?
You can't do it for personal travel unless you have an FAA license. So if you're a pilot, like flight dispatcher or an aircraft mechanic, I believe you can still do it for personal. You can still do it for business, for approved business travel, but there's no longer, it used to be you could do it for any personal travel.
Yeah, I remember we used to do it some nights when they didn't have any. Some people would ask. I remember our manager would be like, "They have 2 seats tonight if anybody wants to go to Memphis for the evening."
Just to fly.
Yeah, just to fly to Memphis, and you go there and hang out, and have a cup of coffee or whatever, and you come back on the one.
That's cool.
In Harrisburg in the morning. That's
fucking awesome.
There was something. I didn't have shit to do. I'd be like, "You guys got an open seat?" They'd be like, "Yeah, you have the 727s over into Memphis." It was really cool. I mean, it was a great program.
Yeah, that sounds like it'd be cool. Be able to do that.
Flying up 727s because you sat right in the cockpit.
Yes, exactly. And you get to put on the earmuffs or whatever they gave you, and you heard like when they would go over the different towers, you know, like 121s or and they like dial it in. Right. Yeah. That's pretty much all. Like when you see these guys fly, they take off and land. Yeah. Everything else is like they turn these little knobs. It's crazy. It's insane.
That sounds cool. So Neil, we were talking about earlier, maybe you would know or confirm this, but I was talking to Matt. He doesn't really remember, but isn't there like, when you work at like a ramp or hub like that and you're dealing with those airplanes, if you strike an airplane or something, like you're working there, that's pretty much it, right? Like they don't really mess around with that. If you're if you were to like driving a tug or something or doing something out there and you would strike an airplane, they're very strict on that, because that opens a whole can of worms, correct? Like with the FAA and everything else.
Yeah, that's it. It's a very big issue to strike an aircraft. I had an issue when I was in Memphis. I was pulling a string of empty containers, and there was another plane across the way. This was kind of in the middle of the sort, so there weren't really any planes coming in or out. I guess maintenance was starting this plane to test the engines or whatever, and it blew one of the containers off the dollies and slid over into a plane. So that was a lot of paperwork and an issue. I didn't lose my job, but it was
a big issue though. Yeah,
big deal, because of course, has to be inspected and whatever to make sure that plane is safe to go again and whatever.
Yeah, I actually heard from another gentleman that works at FedEx, or it might have been another logistics company, that they actually sacrificed a van or truck one time because there was like a runaway dolly or something going towards a plane, and they actually pulled a vehicle and said, let's total the vehicle instead of the plane. You know what I mean? Basically, take the van out or the truck out, because that's not as much of a loss. If it would have hit the plane,
Wow.
it would have been like a huge, huge deal. You know what I
Sure.
mean? But
Yeah, that's all that material that needs to get there on time. It's a big loss.
yeah, for sure.
Or to empty a plane to load a new one. I remember going through stuff like that too.
Mm-hmm. So this whole incident that happened, back to that, there was no really loss of work time or anything. Like they didn't shut down the hub. Do you remember? Like, was it business as usual then after that, or?
Yeah, it was no slowdowns or anything else. That plane was kind of over in the hangar for quite a while before they moved it off to somewhere else. And I believe it was put back in service after whatever time they did all the investigating and
Yep.
Cleaned it up.
inspecting it.
Wipe the blood out and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, between that and I think with the stress that the airframe was put into, it had to go through a pretty thorough inspection to be certified again.
Yeah, they did.
Unreal.
They said the guy flew it like a Navy plane.
Mm-hmm. That's wild.
Put it in like those dips and dives and turns.
Dipsy doos.
Mm-hmm.
You guys got any other questions for Neil?
Oh, the only question I have is, which is better, Memphis barbecue or Kansas City barbecue? But
There we go. Yeah.
we'll get there.
Yeah. Yeah. So speaking of which, like Neil's a pit master. He's real good at the barbecue. So what's up with Memphis barbecue? Like Zap saying, what's the best barbecue out there?
Well, definitely, I would have to vote for Memphis. I actually haven't been to Kansas City, but I've
Okay.
had Kansas City style barbecue, and I definitely prefer the Memphis, and I cook in more of a Memphis style.
There you go. Yeah.
What's the Kansas City? Is that more like the red sauce?
I think it's, as far as the difference between it and the Memphis sauces would be a little bit sweeter than Kansas City, but Kansas City, I believe, is still kind of a red sauce, but it's more of a
Vinegar versus
Yeah.
sweet.
not as sweet. It's a little bit more vinegary. Yeah.
It's like Carolina too. They have that vinegar base.
Texas has their own kind of barbecue thing.
Yeah.
Pittsburgh barbecue.
They have barbecue
No,
out there?
it's-
I don't know.
it's a joke.
They have Primani Brothers. out
Yeah, that's
there,
what I mean.
right?
Primani Brothers
Yeah.
Put
barbecue.
fries on their sandwiches.
Mm-hmm. Weird.
Yeah, Neil, you got a good voice, man. We could always use announcers from time to time. I know you made comments about Nutley Nick, maybe less Nutley Nick, maybe a little bit more other people in there. Like Neil definitely has a good voice. Me,
I don't know. Nutley Nick comes from more of like a gymnastics conference.
yeah. Oh, that's right.
the-
Talking football.
The SEC is really the football conference. That's where it's at. So Hale State,
That's right. Yeah, Neil's a big Mississippi State fan. As
Okay.
we know, our buddy Nutley Nick is a West Virginia Mountaineer fan, and yeah. But
no respect for the Big Ten. out here?
No. I mean, hey,
Wow.
he's diehard Mississippi State, and you know how Nutley is West Virginia. I mean, he makes bets all over the place about West Virginia. When he owes our lawyer still from last year because he tried to bet,
Yep.
the pit game. But yeah. So
Yeah, he doesn't really like to pay up on these bets, does he?
no, he likes to make them but never pay up on them. You know what I mean? But Neil, you got a good voice, man. We might have to use him sometime for some interviews and stuff when we're out. Out doing interviews, and where Nutley does that stuff
Yeah.
sometimes. So you guys got anything else about the flight? Anything that we didn't cover? I'm trying to think. Questions that came. Oh, I know what I want to ask you. Another question for you, Neil. So I know that they said kind of like the genesis of all this, where they started investigating this guy. There was a phone call he made during like FedEx has like a inter-company TV station or something, and there was something with Fred Smith where he was doing like a basically like a presentation or something like that. This guy called under a fake employee number of somebody else and used his name to kind of rattle him or try to get him. They were talking about expanding or something like that. What's it called? Like FX TV or something like that?
FX TV is exactly what it was called, and they used to do different like town hall meetings and this and that, and sometimes it would be like live and interactive where you could call in and ask questions and that sort of stuff. But there was usually, pretty much for the 30 years I've been here, there's pretty much always like a monthly video that comes out with different information and stuff. And the FX TV used to be kind of constantly broadcast, not always live, but it could be playing in like the break room where it would scroll through the different videos and some different, just excerpts here and there, or stories about what's happening here, or, we flew this panda from here to there or whatever.
Gotcha.
Just a lot of different company information that way.
So like on a loop, they would just loop it. Now, do you remember that particular incident when it do you remember that when you were working there, like that, like talk of that, like, oh, some guy called in and had a interaction with Fred Smith or whatever on TV, or were you not aware of that back then?
I don't remember that specifically. I remember seeing different times where that happened, but don't remember, the specific one where he may have called.
I think I read that in the book or maybe on one of the documentaries that they talked about it. But I thought that was an interesting thing that I kind of started all this. Not that they were, I don't want to say they were out for him, but it kind of like, let's take a look at this guy. I don't know what's up with him, and it they were able to see his flight records were all.
So
he was logging hours that weren't there,
So Neil, were you there when they found that guy on the island and they brought him back? And they had that big
with the
party for
volleyball
him?
and stuff.
Yeah,
He had wings painted on his.
yeah.
on the
He had
boxes.
to re-deliver them back. But I know Fred Smith was at that one. I think there was a big thing on TV. That was crazy.
That was crazy.
Yeah,
Was that real?
I don't know. It's just
I don't know.
FedEx, man. That's all I remember.
That was a good.
I don't know. I'm a dedicated employee, but I think if I was stuck on the island, there wouldn't have been a box I wouldn't have opened to figure out if it could help me.
Yeah, right. I know that would be tough.
Save it.
Yeah, that would be tempting.
No, they were showing that's the dedication though.
That's
the
it, yeah.
dedication of he needed to get that package there, and he did. He
Yep.
succeeded.
Yep. For people who don't know what we're talking about, it's Castaway, right? Is that what it's called? The
People
Tom
don't know
Hanks.
what we're talking about. Then
Well, you never know. You know what I mean?
maybe not.
Right.
That's a vintage movie review then to follow this up.
Yeah,
That's
There
right.
you go. There you
Not
go.
a bad idea.
Speaking
Not
of
a
which,
bad idea.
speaking of which, I know Neil likes to listen. Is there any movie that you particularly like to hear covered, or like a true crime or story that you'd like to see us cover? We definitely would try to cover it for you.
I mean, the story-wise, the only one that I think that's would be really interesting is the pizza bomber that was in the Erie, Pennsylvania area. I lived near there when that was going on.
Yep, I'm aware of that one. Yeah, that was on. They did like a Netflix thing on it. It was really cool. And that's right. You're kind of in around that area now in Pennsylvania, so that'd be a good one to cover for the true crime. And movie wise, anything you can think of? Maybe Castaway, like you said, or
Yeah, I mean, to relate to this Castaway. Other than that, I'm not sure. There's
so many.
I don't know. Done a lot of the good ones, and there's so many. There's so many out there.
Right. Well, you guys got anything else for Neil before we close it out?
I got nothing other than thanks. Like Neil, thank you so much for jumping in and jumping on and really, giving us that firsthand look and that firsthand experience, that firsthand story. Like this is great, man.
Yeah, thanks again, Neil, for not jump seating, just jumping on.
Jumping on, yeah, we appreciate it.
Yeah, and joining us here on the basement, man. Thank you.
Yeah, no doubt. Yeah, man, I appreciate you taking the time with us.
Yeah, anytime. All right.
All right,
Later.
man.
All right, thanks, Neil.
Yep,
Later.
thanks, Neil.
Later.
Later.
That was an awesome phone call.
Yeah, that was great.
Dude, Neil, thank you again so very much.
Yep, thank you.
And in the aftermath of all of this, in fact, there is a denouement. During his trial, the prosecution argued Calloway was trying to commit suicide. Calloway's legal representation attempted to invoke an insanity defense, but it didn't work. Calloway was ultimately found guilty of attempted murder, attempted air piracy, and interference with flight crew operations. On August 11th, 1995, he received 2 consecutive life sentences. Now, because these were federal sentences, there is no chance of parole.
No, sir.
Nope.
No chance.
Did we mention that they all lived? Everybody survived this crazy ordeal.
They did.
They did not fly again that I know of.
Commercially.
Right, but they all did live, and I'm sure they were. I mean, FedEx seems like a great company to work for, so I would assume they were compensated well and taken care of.
$5.1 billion. I'm sure the guy gave him a little extra.
Yeah, you would
extra.
hope. You would hope.
Bonus.
And then I'm sure they became like spokesmen and stuff for the company, or like you said, they got some 6-figure jobs off of it.
So they didn't fly commercially, but of all of them, Tucker, this is the one who had
flight engineer.
That was
Co-pilot or
Peterson was the flight engineer.
Oh, okay.
Tucker was the co-pilot. That's correct. This is the guy who, in my opinion, suffered the most.
The fractured skull.
This guy had the fractured skull. He's permanently blinded in one of his eyes.
Jeez.
He's still got the right side paralysis from time to time, or the right side motor skills. He actually flies for funsies. Like, he's able to fly.
Oh, I thought you said for
Fonzie.
Fonzie.
Yeah, I was like,
For funsies.
Fonzarella.
Hey, take me to the inspiration point.
I want to go to Big Al's.
For funsies.
Funsies.
I got you.
Just for funsies, yeah. So of all of them, he still flies, but again, just his own plane.
just like recreational.
Recreational,
Yeah.
yep.
That's
Still very
that's
cool.
wild.
Yep.
Yeah, I know that like when you have that passion to be a pilot or fly, like it's something. Now, I just saw a thing on the news the other day. Speaking of which, this guy's 100, and he flew in World War II.
Dang.
And that was his dream again to fly. So they put him in a plane, and he went up with another guy, and he was able. That was a smaller plane, but he's 100 years old flying this plane.
God
around. It was
bless
on
him.
the news because that's like a passion. I'm sure if you're
Sure.
into doing that, it's kind of like riding a motorcycle or whatever
Yeah.
else. You know,
I saw a lady today. She was on the morning news. She was 107 years old.
jeez,
She made it 107, but they just kept showing footage of her trying to eat cake.
That's Joe Lewis.
yeah, he's 100. What,
Joe Lewis,
100?
107 years old.
This is 107 years old.
You ain't
Yeah.
never met no Frank Sinatra.
So they went there like trying to interview her and stuff. She's just looking and she's like, they're like, smile, Rosie, or whatever.
Oh my God.
She was
Wow.
she was just hitting the cake, but hey,
You
Hey,
know,
whatever.
we were so when we were talking to Neil, we were talking about the plane, and it was immediately placed into the old hangar, and they got to work on it. So at a cost of close to $800,000, the aircraft was repaired after the incident and returned to service. In 2008, the plane was upgraded to eliminate the ongoing need for a flight engineer, and then finally, on December 31st, 2022, it was retired, having flown for FedEx since January 24th, 1986.
Damn. Yeah, I know those planes.
86.
Those planes have
86.
usually like a 30-year lifespan. That they usually. That's about what it ends up being.
I don't know, from working when I was working at FedEx, seeing those planes and like going out there when some of the what are those called? The maintenance guys.
Mm-hmm.
And they would like open up pieces of, and the wiring and stuff inside these planes is insane.
Oh my
Like,
God, yeah.
You're going back to like World War II type
Yeah.
shit. It
Yeah,
looks
yeah,
like
yeah.
you're like, why are you even going up in these things?
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
there has to be they have to be more advanced by now. I think the planes they're making in 2023, right?
Maybe.
You would think technology. What is it? What is it all
What-
about?
What is it? But it makes no sense. There's just so much shit packed inside a plane.
Yeah.
I don't like it. It's too much shit.
Do you think we'll ever land on the sun?
Next week.
Does you think we's ever land on the sun?
That's
Yeah.
it. Does you think we's ever land on the sun? Let's see. One more. Oh, on May 26th, 1994, the Airline Pilots Association awarded Dave Sanders, James Tucker, and Andy Peterson the Gold Medal Award for Heroism, the highest award a civilian pilot can receive.
That's awesome.
I think Tom Hanks got the same award.
Did he for that?
Yes, for
Yeah,
that. Yeah.
for delivering the packages after Wilson.
That's
beautiful.
right. I forgot they did at the end, right?
Yeah,
He
yeah.
delivered
That's
it.
how
was it
he,
you two, I think.
he hooked up with that broad.
That's awesome.
Fun fact, this Callaway crazy, he's actually currently imprisoned in Pennsylvania,
Oh, for real?
in Allenwood, Pennsylvania, at the United States Penitentiary.
Hey, you think we could go
was
visit
just
him?
thinking that,
That'd be
yeah.
awesome.
That'd be
We could do
great.
an interview because you
Yeah.
can get passes.
Yeah,
Yeah, we
Yeah.
should take a trip up there. We
Yeah.
should just interview a bunch of people.
A part
what did you
two,
do?
maybe?
Oh man,
that's not a bad idea.
That's a great idea. We can do that.
If these people are still alive, like, hey man, we want to,
Well, I know the three pilots are. Well, I shouldn't say I know, but as of maybe a year or two ago, they were still alive because I saw like they were in their 40s when all this went down. Back in '94 or whatever.
Mhm.
So they're probably 70s maybe by now.
Yep.
Yeah, we
Close to 70, I guess.
start doing shit like that. That's like ODB turning point.
well, so let's not forget these guys are in Vietnam, and we know a guy who was in Vietnam, and he's still with us. So whatever his age might be, maybe these guys might be right around that age.
True.
I'd say probably mid 60s to maybe late 70s.
Yeah.
Some early 80s, depending how they were like, if they were
Mhm.
like a captain or a colonel and shit like that.
OG, triple
Yeah.
OG.
Right. But yeah, Zach, man, that was a good story. I'm so glad you were able to research that and
No, hey,
take
man,
us down
that
the
was good. That was really good.
yeah. And shout out to Neil
Yeah.
for
Shout out to Matt for his firsthand experience.
yeah, that was cool.
We're just trying to
It's always
add some-
cool.
Some stories to it.
Yeah.
Nailed it.
Nailed it. So I'm not sure what we'll be back with next week. Definitely a cool true crime or compelling story. I guess that's it. You guys got anything else?
Nope.
No, sir.
So we'll catch you where?
On the flip side.
If we don't see you sooner, we'll see you later.
Peace. Thanks for hanging out in the old dirty basement. If you dig our theme music like we do, check out the Tsunami Experiment. Find them on Facebook. Their music is available streaming on Spotify and Apple. and where great music is available.
You can find us at Old Dirty Basement on Facebook and Instagram, and at Old Dirty Basement Podcast on TikTok.
Peace.
We Audi 5000.